Hi all, Lee here. So I just want to go show you what I've done so far. If you remember from last video, I cut all those strips of wood, glued them all together, and this is the final result, and I'm really happy with it. So I've got the colours I wanted, everything's glued together fine. I've also sanded it down, actually planed it down to make it flatter. Now I'm just starting to draw some lines on this to see where I need to cut the dimensions. Remember, it's a 34-inch scale length, but I just want to make sure things like the width of the fretboard at the 24th fret, I want to make sure that there's enough room so the strings don't overhang, and various other measurements. I've also been drawing out some headstock designs, but I've not decided on a design yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out a headstock design directly on there, because I can't imagine it in my head, and I just want to put the position of the machine heads, and then I'm just going to draw a design directly on there. There's some other measurements I need to be sure of before I start cutting, but what I think I may do next is actually cut the truss rod groove down in the centre of this block, because that needs to be done at some point, so I guess I might as well do that next. But just in the meantime, I'll give you a closer look of what I've done and the reason why you may see string attached to it now. As you can see, this is what it looks like. If you get a closer look at that, hopefully you can see that. So it looks really, really nice with those 3 stripes going down the centre. And like I say, I've already planed it, everything is smooth. But what I wanted to do, and the reason I have everything out here, is I just wanted to check the dimensions, the width of the fretboard. So this is a pre-slotted fretboard. It's so much easier to get these than to make it myself. It just didn't make any sense to make the slots in the fretboard myself, so I just buy this as it is. But what I'll do is I've drawn some dimensions on, as you can see, just at the different positions. So where the nut is, the 24th fret, and also where the bridge goes. Now the idea is, I don't know, now I've got the bridge, I needed to see how wide that the fretboard needed to be at the 24th fret with the bridge in position. Now I'd already drawn that out on paper, but of course when you draw a line, the line is so much thinner than a bass string. So just to be sure, I wanted to put some string on this on the bridge, so 1st, 3rd and 5th positions on the bridge. Also to put my nut on, just to give me a guide on where the strings are going to be. So this is a really nice visual representation of what it should look like. So let's just line this up. Put that there, there and there. So the idea is as I pull this bridge back into position, this is the 24th, this is 34-inch scale length I've already measured. Now, when I have the bridge in position and the strings here, it means I can see along the line I've drawn on the fretboard to make sure that I've given the correct amount of width. Now there is some adjustment I can do on this bridge to separate them and make them further apart. So I have some capability of adjustment, but at the moment they're all as close together as they can get. So what I wanted to check is that the string wouldn't overlap the side of the fretboard, because obviously at the 24th fret that would be an issue. And when I first drew this out and measured it, the 24th fret, I measured that it should be roughly around 68 millimeters. Well, as it turns out, 68 millimeters would have put the thickness of the bass string too near to the edge of the fretboard. So I've actually, because I use this physical way of checking, I've actually increased the width of the fretboard at the 24th fret to 70 millimeters, and that's worked perfectly. So just as a reminder, it's a 45mm nut. It's going to 70 mils at the 24th fret, and it's a 5-string bass, and I believe this is about 100 mils on the 1st and the 5th strings. Actually no, I think it could be a bit less, about 90 mils. I think the whole bridge is 100 mil. But that's the rough dimensions, and I'm glad I did this just so I can have a visual cue to whether it looks right. And now I'm really happy that I've got the measurements right. So there's still some other things I haven't decided. For example, obviously I mentioned the headstock, but also whether I want a tilted headstock or whether I just want to cut a groove out and leave it flat, much more like a Fender design. Their headstocks are generally flat. But I like to have a tilt on it just because I think it looks a bit better. Also, the other thing to be aware of is when I glue the wings on the side, where it glues to the body, I probably need that roughly the bottom curve at around the 24th fret, but then the top curve is around the 18th fret. And I don't know if you noticed that, but a lot of guitars, obviously, there's a little bit more meat. It's a bit more further forward at the top when you glue the wings on, just to get that classic guitar sort of shape. So these are all things to consider. The other thing is I also need to start thinking about cutting a big chunk of material away from this and starting to shape the neck. So that's going to be another big job, and I'm going to have to make a few decisions and draw some lines on there. So all of these different measurements are in the back of my mind. Even though I've drawn it on paper, it still doesn't quite match up when you're actually doing it for real, because there's so many little things that change or happen when you're working with real wood. But like I say, I think the next job now is going to get, if I just get this, I have a long truss rod, and it's just to cut the groove into this using the measurements and my router, and that'll be the first job. Let's just get that groove in, make sure this fits snugly in there, and then we'll carry on to start shaping the neck itself. So there we go, I've routed the truss rod channel. Let's just check it fits in okay. Actually, that's really good. That fits really nicely, it's perfect. So I'm really pleased with that. So the next step is, what shall I do next? I think I am going to cut this fretboard first, and then I'm going to try and cut this to shape first as well. I don't really want to stick the fretboard on and then cut the whole lot together because I can't really see the lines properly on here, but we'll see how that goes. So next video I'm going to start shaping this. So I'm probably going to cut the fretboard, possibly glue it on, and also smooth this down and maybe take some material off of here and start shaping the neck correctly.